What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and with me is Carolyn Anderson and Logan Eaton. My good peoples, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Easter morning. Did anybody wake up and find some Easter eggs underneath their pillows?
Nope.
Isn't that how that works? The Easter fairy?
I get confused if you should leave your teeth out under the pillow on Easter or if that's just like I get confused on the holiday traditions.
Totally.
That's why we just don't do them.
That's right.
Or if I should do like an Easter tree and then leave my tooth out under the pillow.
Easter tree, got to hang your eggs on it.
Yeah.
Totally.
But no, to answer your question, the Easter
gross.
bunny was not here.
Oh my gosh.
And no teeth fell out.
Yeah.
That's because you were naughty. Naughty instead of nice. Something like that. Sweet. Well, this is session 3 of management. And this is going to be like session 3 part A. Because we're not going
to keep going on this topic. We're never going to end.
No, why end? No, there's so much to this topic of management. I mean, it really does affect who you become and what you actually get into. So the BT definition of management is the effective use of your current resources to create value and produce growth. It's only in managing what you currently have that will cause you to become more than you currently are. So last session we were talking about, we read some parables, and one of those was the parables of the talents. And so, you had a master going away on a journey, gathers up his 3 servants and distributes to each of them different amounts of money according to their abilities. So the master gives one guy 5, one guy 2, and one guy 1, each according to his abilities. And, we were just kind of speculating, on this, story, right? It was just a story, but we like to just think about the different aspects to kind of gain as much as we can out of it. So, one question we asked was, is it possible, because the guy who had 5, and this was, the master gave each according to their abilities. So the guy who had 5 doubled his, the guy who had 2 doubled his. Both of those guys went straight to work. Like it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't a question. They just went after it, doubled what they had. But the guy who had 1 didn't do anything with it. And so we're just kind of asking the question, what's a potential reason that this guy who had 1 didn't do anything with it? And one thought was, well, what if the guy who had 1 talent thought he was worth more than just 1? And so then he ended up sitting on it and doing nothing. And, it's just this concept where it's like sometimes our egos can be bigger than our results. And when that happens, we think we're further down the road than we really are. It's like even to the point where it's like it's possible to sit around and dream about what you would do if you were the guy who had 5 talents. You'd be like, wow, if I had 5, man, I would do this, this, and this, and I'd double it and triple it and quadruple it. I would, your ego's so big, you think, okay, I could do all these things, and I only got this one measly talent. But it's like, it was the master's money. The master has every right to do with it as he sees fit. And sometimes, the master, I said according to each one's ability. And so, it's possible to sit around and think about what you would do if you had more, whilst overlooking what you currently have, right? Sitting and dreaming about 5 talents or 2 talents while doing nothing with the 1 talent that we've been given. Management is about taking that 1 talent and turning it into 2, right? If this guy really was as good as he thought he was in our scenario, then he should have just went to work and turned 1 into 2 and 2 into 4 and 4 into 8, right? Like he should have just, prove it. I think sometimes we want the promotion without the proof. It's like sometimes the thought is, I've been here for a while at this job, I totally deserve to be promoted, right? The problem is that time is not synonymous with maturity, because growth is not automatic. It's intentional, right? So we have to become what we can see, right? If you want to get promoted, you got to become the person who can handle the situation, right? That's that concept. You reap what you sow. You got to sow first, right? Earl Nightingale in Lead the Field talks about, he's like, there's like 2 camps of people. He's like, there's one camp who will sit in front of the fireplace and say, first give me heat, then I'll give you wood. Right? But he's like, then there's another camp who understands that you first have to put in the wood if you want some heat. But oftentimes though, it's like you could dream about what could be and what should be whilst neglect what you currently have, right? If you dream of a promotion, think you deserve it, believe you have the potential, which that one's good, but yet you show up late. You're unprepared. Your projects are always behind. You sit in problems instead of solve them, right? You make excuses. But it's like, well, but if I had more, if I was given more, I would become more. And it's like, it's just that management is that concept where you understand that you must first become before you get, right? You must sow before you can reap. You got to add value before you get promoted.
This one's hitting pretty hard for me. This one's speaking right to the heartstrings.
Right to the Easter eggs.
Yeah, it's like you want to progress and expand, but you're only doing 50% of what you could be doing with what you have now. And that's just, I don't know, that takes self-awareness, like you were saying. But yeah, no, I think it's all very true. Ego can get in the way, like this urgency to get somewhere can get in the way. And then it's easy to be blind to the obvious things that need managed now that aren't getting managed.
Yeah.
Well, it's like your sister was telling us a story about work and was saying how there was this person that was really feeling like due for a promotion. It was I don't even know if he would say earned, but it was like should be rightfully his. But it was like his work was, he was missing things. He was like lacking in a lot of areas, and it was like, she was trying to guide him and like, okay, we need to see these kinds of things. And there was just like no awareness of the reality that they're like, I need to look a certain way. I need to act a certain way. I need to be performing a certain way if I've earned a promotion, not just I've been here longer than everybody else. And so, just that reality that like it matters what you do, how you do it, and, the quality of the effort that you're putting in, it matters.
Hey, you could say that again.
The quality of the effort you put in, it matters. It's just like there is a high standard of excellence, and I think sometimes, you can people can try to get by with less effort, hoping they'll get the same result, but there is a reality that you won't climb as high if you want to put in less effort. You'll just stop at a mediocre place.
Yes.
That is true. Wow. That is right. That is a dagger right in the heart.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it's like, if we think about vision, vision is a picture of the future. It's a picture of potential realized, right? So it lets you know what you could do and could become, but it's not a picture of what is. But, so just for an example, let's just pretend to just quantify this. Let's say it takes 100 steps to reach the fulfillment of your vision. Right now, the biggest trick is that the process is often misunderstood, and I know I didn't understand it, and a lot of people don't understand it. There's a process to the fulfillment of vision, right? And it's in this process of management. There's a process to the fulfillment of a vision, but what happens is that because we see the end result, as soon as we see it, that's what we expect. I'm going to walk out the door and I'm going to be at step 100, not understanding that I'm at step 0. But it's like there's a process. And what happens is that it is possible to go from 0 and skip to 100. But I am telling you the truth, and I'm going to prove it, that you do not want to be one of those people. Vision helps show you the direction that you should go, right? That's like the whole point. As I can see the end, now I can figure out what I need to do to get there. But here's another huge challenge, right? So one is we have to understand that there's a process. So once you start to discover vision, you got to understand that that's what you could become, not what you are right now. And like we're saying, first you got to sow before you can reap. So the next challenge is that step number 1 doesn't look anything like step number 100. This is what is super confusing because it's I want to say it's so unobvious, right? This is grammar. This is perfect grammar right here. It is so unobvious. Right, where step number 1, you ask the question, it's like, does this even have anything to do with my vision? Like, how is this? Like, it almost seems disconnected because step number 1 looks so different from step 100. But it's like, it's the process of management. It's the process of taking the one talent and turning it into 2. This is the process of development. This is the process of management, is we have to take what we currently have and start to use it and maximize it and not overlook it. It's easy to dream about what I would do with more and what I would do if I was further down the road. But you need to go through the steps to gain the experience, to solve the problems, to deal with the things that fall under the category of life happens. You need these things. You need these situations, these circumstances, the problems that you got to solve, the hurdles you got to jump over. All this stuff makes you equipped for the vision. Bill Johnson talks about, the glory of God and how God wants to give us more glory, but the glory is weighty. And so it's like he can't give us more than we can handle. Otherwise it would crush you. Well, this is the whole thing, right? It's like you start to see vision. Well, we're not ready for the fulfillment of that vision. We couldn't handle it. We could, you can't, we don't yet know how to solve all those problems, right? We don't know, how to deal with these different situations. We need to grow in that experience to be able to handle it. And this is the thing, that if we can grasp this understanding and this reality, and then our lives reflected in everything we do, guys, our future is secured. we got this, for anybody who doesn't know, we got this BT community group, and we've been doing online meetings, twice a month since the beginning of the year. And anyways, we were talking about vision in our last session, and I was just talking about how, in this last couple of years, we've been working with the organization, and the thing that I knew was that the work that I was doing and needed to do was going to take me to my future. I didn't know how that was going to work. I didn't understand. I didn't have any details about how that was going to connect, how that was going to work out. But it didn't matter, because the thing I understood was that if I did the work that needed to be done now, I was going to develop the disciplines, the maturity. All these projects were going to make demands on my potential and cause me to become the person who's ready for the next thing. I knew for a fact it was going to take me to my future. I had no idea how, but the one thing I did know is if I did the work today and tomorrow, and I kept showing up and doing the work, it was going to take me there. And that's this whole thing of management, right? It's like going through the steps, going through the situations, developing the focus and the discipline. That stuff guarantees your future, that continual growth. It's like knowing the season that you're in right now matters, because when you know what you're meant to do, then we can take that one talent and use it and develop it and grow it. But if we're constantly just dreaming about step 100 when we're at step 0, it detracts. You never take any action. You're not doing the things necessary to move down the pathway. We have to take step 1 and we got to build it. We got to put the wood in the fireplace. So today we are going to begin our journey on looking at 3 different kinds of leaders. When I think about when I think about the Old Testament, there's 3 types of leaders that stand out. You got one who's put in a position but not trained for it, has a title but no qualifications. Then there's the ones that are good and proficient in some areas and yet deficient in other areas. And then you got the ones who were prepared for their call. Those are the guys who saw the vision and then immediately went to step number 1, which didn't look anything like step 100. But these people grew in ability, in skill, in leadership, in communication, in like problem solving, making decisions. Like these guys were then prepared so that when the time came, and that time, I'm telling you, was down the road. But when it was time, these guys were ready. So today we're going to look at the people who get put in a position but weren't trained for it, had the title but no qualifications. Have you guys ever had any experience with leaders who weren't leaders?
I wouldn't have thought about it before.
I don't think I thought about it in this context. I probably have, but wouldn't have known at that point to think like this or to notice it maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll go through this and see if we can see some things. Yeah, so we're gonna look at kind of some of the earlier days of Saul and just who was the first king in Israel, and we're gonna look at that situation. So there's this proverb in Proverbs 30:21 through 23, and it says, "For 3 things the earth is perturbed or made uneasy. Yes, for 4 it cannot bear up. For a servant when he reigns, a fool when he's filled with food, a hateful woman when she is married, and a maidservant who succeeds her mistress. And when he reigns, that's the one that I was thinking about. And it's like, I pity the city whose king was a slave. You know, if you think about Moses, God called Moses to deliver Israel out of Egypt. Moses was born from a Hebrew, right? He was part of Israel. His mom was a slave. But because Pharaoh had a decree that went out and said, hey, let's kill all the, young boys. What a guy. His mom puts him in the river. What a process.
In a basket. Let's not forget that part.
In a little boat. After they were done collecting all their Easter eggs, took those out, put them in.
Definitely no connection there.
And he ends up growing up in the palace. Interestingly enough, right? God called, like it says that his mom knew that he was special. And so she puts him in the river, ends up with the daughter of Pharaoh, who then raises him. So he grows up in palace. He does not grow up in the village. He doesn't grow up under slavery. Now, I don't think this was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like you think about the conversations that go on in the palace versus the conversations that go on in the village, right? In the village, you're like, oh my gosh, they come home at the end of the day. You want to know what they made us do today? They changed our quota. They made us do this. Oh, we had to do that. Oh, this was terrible. They whipped us. They whatever. They wouldn't give us water, wouldn't give us food, whatever. You come home and you're talking about how somebody else was oppressing you, which was very real. But you think about growing up in an environment where you're conditioned to have somebody else over you, making all those decisions, telling you where to go, when to show up, how everything works. Versus in the palace, they're saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to make them do. Right? They're making decisions. They're imposing their vision upon these people. Now, pros and cons with all of that because they were crazy. But it was a different environment than, right? Growing up in the palace was different than growing up in the village. And it's interesting that God would use something dysfunctional where Pharaoh, the reason Moses is in there is because Pharaoh was trying to kill all the young boys. And here he is in that place. One, protected, and so not getting killed, but growing up in a different environment. It's just interesting that God uses dysfunctional environments in the pathway to the fulfillment of your vision. It's interesting. So Saul, right? So if we do some nutshells and then we're going to do some readings. Israel tells Samuel, so this is in 1 Samuel, that they want a king. Now this was a very dumb decision. This was bad. And but they said they wanted a king. And so, Samuel's all mad. He's like, these guys are dumb. And God's like, no, don't worry about it. He's like, it's not that they rejected you. It's that they rejected me. I was their king. But they want somebody else to rule over them. Samuel ends up anointing Saul. Right? This is that picture of the vision. But see, it's different, man. For Saul, poor Saul was chosen. He didn't choose this. And the reason he was chosen was because of how he looked. God was already the king over Israel. God was already the one who would deliver them, right? They're like, we want somebody to go out and fight our battles, right? That was already God. And so God's like, fine, I'm going to give you exactly what you're asking for. And so Saul said he was taller than everybody else from his shoulders up, right? So dude was big. It also said he was handsome. I'm just saying, it's good to be handsome. And so he looked the part, right? The problem was he was not the part. So God chooses Saul, and then it says that God changed his heart. Now, typically, anytime we're talking about the heart, we're talking about the subconscious mind. It says that God changed his heart. He was not prepared. He wasn't trained. The character wasn't developed. But it's like the situation, what the situation demanded. This just was the approach. I'm going to give you exactly what you're asking for, and it's going to be dumb. And so anyways, God changes his heart because he's not the right person. He hasn't gone through the preparation process. And so bam, so then even when Samuel gathers all Israel up to anoint him king, dude is hiding. Like, he's already been anointed king. Samuel has already told him, you're going to be king. God's already changed his heart. And when all of Israel is gathered, and then they're going through like the lots, picking like the tribe, the sub-tribe, the family, and dude is hiding in the luggage. And so they come and get him, and people are like, oh, yes, wonderful, we've got our king. They see him, he looks the part. But then there's a couple people who are like, this guy's an idiot, like, why? And it said they didn't bring him any presents. They didn't bring him any goodies. No free lotions. And bam. So Saul becomes king, but without any kinds of preparation. So the next thing that happens in 1 Samuel 11 is there's this initiation battle.
Okay, that's the word, initiation.
Yes. And Asian. Okay. That is exactly how you sound it out. Mm-hmm. It didn't give me a red line.
No, I don't know. That is.
Carolyn is always giving me grief about my spelling.
Okay, well.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that looks right too.
I think there's a silent Z in there.
That's initiation. Yeah. We're talking about initiation.
Yeah.
Anyways, in 1 Samuel 11, there's this initiation battle. And so essentially, Nahash, the king of that, or so I don't know if he's the king. I think so. He's the Amorite comes up against Jabesh Gilead. So they come up against, one group of Israel, and they're like, hey, make a covenant. And then, the people of Jabesh were like, hey, whoa, make a covenant with us, and then we'll serve you. And Nahash is like, sure, but on this condition, is like that we're going to put out every one of your right eyes and bring reproach on all Israel. And they're like, all right, well, maybe just hold off for 7 days. Let us send some word out. If people come, great. If not, do whatever seems good to you. It's a weird situation. So anyways, the messengers, go from that place, and they go to Gibeah of Saul, and they tell the news to all the people. And then all the people lift up their voice, they weep, and here's Saul coming from the field. Interestingly enough, right, the messenger didn't go to Saul. He just went to like the town and told the people. Saul finds out about it, but this is this initiation battle, right? So Saul's like, oh my gosh, what's troubling everybody? Why is everybody freaking out? And he gets told what's happened. And then Saul, when he hears the news, his anger is greatly aroused. He took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, whoever does not go out with Saul and Samuel to battle, so shall be done to their oxen. Bam. So the fear of the Lord fell on all the people, and they came out with one consent. And so, bam, they get after it. They break into 3 groups, and they defeat the Amorites. And this is that initiation battle, right? This is This is God's essentially giving them an opportunity to create unity and join this new king with the people. And so they have a problem, a conflict. They got to go solve it. Saul, when he hears it, that righteous indignation rises up, and he's like, there's people coming against my people. Let's go handle this. And so afterwards, the people come up to Samuel and they're like, who were the people who said Saul shouldn't reign over us? Bring them here that we may put them to death. Right? Like, people are now united. They're like believing in Saul because of this situation. And Saul's like, no, not a man shall be put to death this day, for today the Lord has accomplished a great salvation. All right, now this was good. But this is where it ends. This is where the goodness ends. After this, we see lots of problems. So after this, Samuel, after the initiation battle, Samuel's like, all right, bam, let's go back, to here and let's reinitiate him as king. But then he goes through this whole thing. He's like, but I'm going to tell you, he's like, he does it. He says, now therefore stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Is today not wheat harvest? I will call to the Lord, and he will send thunder and rain, that you may perceive and see that your wickedness is great, which you have done in the sight of the Lord in asking for a king for yourselves. And so they do this whole demonstration, and everybody's freaking out. But it's like, the point is this was not the move, right? As we talk about it in Genesis, like, no man was meant to reign over another man. And here Israel's like, and Samuel even says it in here. He's like, the reason why you guys wanted a king was because the Amorites were coming up against them, and they didn't know what to do. So anyways, this is kind of like the first leadership challenge, which he does well. But after that, things go sideways. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick it up in 1 Samuel 13. Carolyn, go ahead and read that.
Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in the mountains of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. The rest of the people he sent away, every man to his tent. And Jonathan attacked the garrison of the Philistines that was in Gibeah, and the Philistines heard of it. Then Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, let the Hebrews hear. Now all Israel heard it, said that Saul had attacked a garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel had also become an abomination to the Philistines. And the people were called together to Saul at Gilgal. Then the Philistines gathered together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the seashore in multitude. And they came up and encamped in Michmash to the east of Bethaven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in danger, for the people were distressed, then the people hid in caves, in thickets, in rocks, in holes, and in pits.
You never hid in a rock before?
Yeah, it's so tricky to get in the rock, maybe behind it. And some of the Hebrews crossed over the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was still in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. Then he waited 7 days, according to the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. So Saul said, bring a burnt offering and peace offerings here to me. And he offered the burnt offering. Now it happened, as soon as he had finished presenting the burnt offering, that Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might greet him. And Samuel said, what have you done? Saul said, when I saw the people were scattered from me, and that you did not come within the days appointed, and the Philistines gathered together at Michmash, then I said, the Philistines will come now on me at Gilgal, and I have not made supplication to the Lord. Therefore I felt compelled and offered a burnt offering. And Samuel said to Saul, you have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For now the Lord would have For now the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought for himself a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be commander over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you. Then Samuel arose and went up from Gilgal to Gibeah of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people present with him, about 600 men.
Bam. So here we go. We got another leadership challenge. But Saul doesn't know what to do. Okay, it just said, right, that the people who were left with them were 600. So if we go back up to the top, it says that Saul chose for himself 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with him, and then 1,000 was with Jonathan. Now Jonathan goes and fights this garrison of Philistines. And so, but then here's the word, right? Now all Israel heard it said that Saul had attacked the garrison of the Philistines, and that Israel had also become an abomination to the Philistines, right? That statement is one of fear, not of like courage and purpose. This is, oh crap, we made a mistake and now we're in big trouble. That's what this is. And then you see that when all the Philistines gather, and there's an immense amount of them. And so it says, when the men of Israel saw that they were in danger, for all the people were in distress, right? Because they were abomination, that was the fear aspect. Now here's this great multitude of people. What do we do now? This is fascinating because before Samuel, you have all the judges, right? Before the judges, you have Joshua. And before Joshua, you have Moses. These people have forgotten everything that Israel did to get into the promised land. These guys seem like they don't know how to fight. They don't know what to do. That's why they wanted a king over them. But they've completely forgotten where they came from. And so here's this situation. Everybody's freaking out. Now Saul was still in Gilgal. All the people followed him, were trembling. And then they waited 7 days, according to the time set by Samuel, who was going to come and do the offering. Dude, what happens when you have fear and you have time?
Time runs out and fear grows.
Fear loves to grow and marinate over time. So no action and fear are a really bad recipe. Right? And this is the same thing that happens later when with Goliath, right? Where Goliath comes out and says, "We don't all need to fight, just fight me. One man fight me." And everybody was scared. And it's just like day after day, that fear and that trembling equals badness. This is then when people go run and hide in caves. So and rocks. Right? So I think Israel was supposed to come together, but even that, he's like, so Saul was supposed to have 2,000 people. Jonathan was supposed to have 1,000 people. And in the end, there was only 600 men counted. So even the chosen people disappeared. So anyways, Saul doesn't know what to do, right? He's like, the people are fleeing. And so this is what he says. He's, because Samuel gets there and he's like, "What have you done?" And he says, "Well, when I saw the people were scattering from me, which would have been happening the whole time, and that you did not come at the appointed days," which he did, "and the Philistines gathered together at Michmash, then I said, the Philistines will now come down on me in Gilgal, and I have not made supplication for the Lord, therefore I felt compelled." I think that's a lie. I don't think he knew what to do. But it's like, I felt compelled, right? I was to do something honorable. And Samuel's like, "Dude, you did foolishly." He's like, "Because you didn't keep the commandment of the Lord. If you did, the Lord would establish your kingdom forever." but now your kingdom shall not continue. So here's a situation. Here's another leadership challenge. Saul has no idea what to do. The people are terrified, and Saul doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to handle that situation. He doesn't know how to strengthen the people's resolve. And so this then becomes his downfall, because then he does something stupid, makes an offering he wasn't supposed to make, and now Samuel comes, and the first thing he says is that your kingdom would have been established forever, but now it won't continue. God has sought for himself, this is very fast, a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be commander of his people. God had to change Saul's heart. But this time, God's like, I found somebody after my own heart, right? Like the development process is already there. The values are already there. Like the workable media is already there, and it was not there with Saul. All right, so then in 1 Samuel 14, we got Jonathan and his armor bearer who fight a Philistine garrison, and Jonathan has this idea to take action while Saul is just sitting underneath a pomegranate tree. Clearly not aware enough to notice that his son had taken off. All right, Logan, you want to read this for us? This is 1 Samuel 14, 6 through 10.
Okay. Then Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. So his armor-bearer said to him, Do all that is in your heart. Go then. Here I am with you, according to your heart. Then Jonathan said, Very well, let us cross over to these men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say thus to us, Wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and not go up to them. But if they say thus, Come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has delivered them into our hand, and this will be a sign to us.
The question is, right, so there was these people together. It might have still been like the 600. Jonathan talks to his armor bearer and then takes off. Why did Jonathan only consult with his armor bearer and not talk to Saul or the other men?
Well, there's usually only one reason you wouldn't go through the right channel of. It's because you don't think they'll agree with you, so you just would go do your own thing, or maybe that's just it. Maybe that would be the only thing. Doesn't think that he would go along with it, so didn't want to get permission. Ask for forgiveness after, or no, he thinks he's just going to prove that he can do a great thing. Maybe he's trying to prove himself.
Totally.
Or maybe there wasn't any respect for.
Well, it was Jonathan that, and I don't know if this is the same story, and it's good we went backwards, but I mean, the last chapter, Jonathan attacked a garrison, and then that's what brought the Philistine army to Israel. Everybody's terrified. It's like if you want to take an action of courage, you can't surround yourself by fear. It's like, to take a bold risk, you don't leave room for doubt and fear. So to talk to Saul, who is incapable of making decisions, and to talk to any of the men who are all terrified, all that would do is try to convince Jonathan not to do anything. But this is what Johnny Boy says. He says, it may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. Dude, I mean, that is a phrase of courage, right? If you think about what God said to Joseph, no, what's his bucket? Joshua. All these names are the same. Saul, Samuel, Joshua, John, whatever. Anyways, what? Joshua, you think about what God said to Joshua, and he said, don't let this law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, for in so doing, you will make your way successful. The ideas you get sold on affect who you become. So just like we're saying, like all these people are terrified, they don't know what to do, like everybody's forgotten what God has done. But here's one guy who's like, for nothing restrains the Lord for saving by many or by few. He's like, let's go take this massive risk because it may just be that God will work for us. Like those are thoughts of courage. That's thoughts of the past. That's remembering what God did and then taking action because of it. So here's John and his armor bearer.
So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, "Look, the Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden." Then the men of the garrison called to Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, "Come up to us, and we will show you something." Jonathan said,
"What do they got up there?"
"We've got presents." Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord has delivered them into the hand of Israel." And Jonathan climbed up on his hands and knees with his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan. And as he came after him, his armor bearer killed them. That first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men within about half an acre of land. And there was trembling in the camp, in the field, and among the people. The garrison and the raiders also trembled, and the earth quaked, so that it was a very great trembling. Now the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and there was the multitude melting away, and they went here and there. Then Saul said to the people who were with him, "Now call the roll and see who has gone from us." And when they had called the roll, surprisingly Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God here." For at that time the ark of God was with the children of Israel. Now it happened, while Saul talked to the priest, that the noise which was in the camp of the Philistines continued to increase. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all the people who were with him assembled, and they went to the battle. And indeed every man's sword was against his neighbor, and there was very great confusion. Moreover, the Hebrews who were with the Philistines before that time, who went up with them into the camp from the surrounding country, they also joined the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise all the men of Israel who had hidden in the mountains of Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle shifted to Beth Aven.
So this is interesting. So Jonathan and his armor bearer, they go up there to see what the Philistines wanted to show them. They go up there, they kill 20 men. All right, this act of like, they made a decision. They thought about who God really was. And in this act of courage, they kill 20 people. And then there's this great trembling that happens, which I think Israel's still trembling. But then the Philistines start to tremble. And then the earth shakes. And then there's this great confusion in the camp of the Philistines, and they all start killing each other. And people, so then Saul and his people start to hear this noise, and they start to see the people melting away, and then they find that Jonathan is gone. And now this is, I just think this is funny. So Saul's like, "Okay, bring the ark of God here." And then As it happened, while Saul was talking with the priest, the noise in the camp of the Philistines continued to increase. So Saul was like, withdraw your hand from the ark. Let's just go kill the people, right? Like, he didn't know what to do. He's like, okay, let's seek God. Oh, wait, the noise is getting louder. Okay, let's just go. Like, he doesn't know what to do. He's fumbling. And what's hilarious is this all began because of Jonathan, and Jonathan is not king. Israel wanted this king because they're like, this guy's going to save us. That king was doing nothing. It was Jonathan, who was just a man, who went out and because of his actions, God intervened and sent total confusion into the camp of the Philistines. All right, so then it just keeps getting better. And after that, they're chasing after the Philistines, and then in verse 24, it gets weird. So Carolyn, go ahead and pick that up at verse 24.
And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had placed the people under oath, saying, "Cursed is the man who eats any food until evening, before I have taken vengeance on my enemies." So none of the people tasted food.
All right, so Saul makes this stupid oath. Cursed is the man who eats any food until evening, before I have taken vengeance on my enemies. You don't have this in the initiation battle, right? It was more just like, hey, the whole point of the mission is is the Amorites are coming against the Israelites, so let's go and solve that problem. That's the core purpose of going to battle. This is different. Saul's been sitting around doing nothing. Jonathan goes out, kills some people. God loves it. And, the Philistines start to crumble. Now, this is so dumb. This is ego. This is image. This is I'm a leader, and I am going to tell you that I'm a leader. And if I don't tell you that I'm a leader, you won't know that I'm a leader. And if you don't tell me that I'm a leader, I won't be a leader. This is total identity crisis and ego. He says, cursed is the man who eats any food until evening, before I have taken vengeance on my enemies. Like, this now became about him instead of just finishing off the Philistines. All right, so then Johnny Boy, he doesn't know about this oath because John's too busy freaking working. So he's with the army now, though, and there's some honey, and he sticks his staff out, grabs some honey, eats it, and his countenance brightens. And then someone told him about the oath, and John said, dude, my father has troubled the land. Look now, how my countenance has brightened because I tasted a little of the honey. How much better if the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies, which they found. For now would there not have been a much greater slaughter among the Philistines? Saul's oath, it's easy to make an oath like that. Hey, nobody's going to eat because Saul's not working. John has a completely different perspective because he takes action. So he has a much more practical approach. He's like, why on earth would you say don't eat anything? He's like, when we were in the middle of a battle. He's like, if everybody could have had some, we could have just keep getting after it and killing these guys. So then, in the evening, the oath is over, and everybody is starving. I mean, you think you're running, you're fighting, your adrenaline's crazy, you're killing people, trying not to be killed. And here at night, everybody's starving because they couldn't eat anything. And so everybody, it says, starts to eat meat with the blood in it. I think they're straight up just eating it raw. But Saul's like, hey, man, don't do that. Everybody, bring your animal to this rock, and then we'll drain out the blood. Okay, now Carolyn, pick this up at 36.
Now Saul said, "Let us go down after the Philistines by night and plunder them until the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them." And they said, "Do whatever seems good to you." Then the priest said, "Let us draw near to God here." So Saul asked counsel of God, "Shall I go down after the Philistines? Will you deliver them into the hand of Israel?" But he did not answer him that day. And Saul said, "Come over here, all you chiefs of the people, and know and see what the sin was today. For as the Lord lives, who saves Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die." But not a man among all the people answered him. Now he said to all Israel, "You be on one side, and my son Jonathan and I will be on the other side." And the people said to Saul, "Do what seems good to you." Therefore Saul said to the Lord God of Israel, "Give a perfect lot." So Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, "Cast lots between my son Jonathan and me." So Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." And Jonathan told him and said, I only tasted a little honey with the end of my rod that was in my hand, so now I must die." Saul answered, "God do so, and more also, for you shall surely die, Jonathan." But the people said to Saul, "Shall Jonathan die, who has accomplished this great deliverance in Israel? Certainly not. As the Lord lives, not one hair of his head shall fall to the ground, for he has worked with God this day." So the people rescued Jonathan, and he did not die. Then Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. It's interesting because, Saul's just kind of going off on his own. Like he's just kind of going rogue. And then he turns against his own son. But the people were like, no, he actually did something good. Like he doesn't deserve to die. So this is very interesting that Saul is just he's disconnected from the reality of what has happened. He's so stuck on his own ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that like God didn't answer Saul for the sake of calling Saul out, so that Saul could be called out on his own mistake. So like God didn't answer him so that this whole process could take place for the sake of Saul being called out on his unwise decision to not let them eat any food. But yeah, it just seems like Saul is always looking for confirmation when decisions need to be made in times of urgency, or like in these tough times that affect a lot of people. Like Saul's kind of looking for confirmation from other people, or he's looking for like a sign from God or something to make these decisions. And I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like Jonathan sees what needs to be done. He considers the main factors and then makes a decision and then does it. So sometimes it's easy for us to want to look for confirmation because sometimes we want to do it right, or sometimes we're just afraid to do something, or sometimes we don't know how or whatever. But this constant like need to look for confirmation or get direction from other people, or if I don't say this prayer before I do this, then something bad's gonna happen or something. Where it's like, if we don't bring the Ark of the Covenant, then we're gonna lose or something. Where it's like from what's sticking out to me is like Jonathan just like sees what needs to be done, and he considers the main points, and then just makes a decision, and God kind of blesses that. Whereas Saul's kind of just, like Carolyn said, lost in his own ideas and maybe thinking too much about himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's fumbling to the nines. So it's like finally Saul's like, all right, so everybody's starving, so now everybody's eating, and now Saul's got the courage, right? He finally catches up with the courage. He's like, guys, let's go down and plunder these guys till the morning. But dude, everybody's wiped out. Everybody's tired, right? They just got some food. He said, let's go down and plunder them until the morning. And then the guys are like, all right, do whatever seems good to you. But then the priest was like, oh, wait, let's draw near to God, right? Like there's this complete, like, I don't know. There's this disconnect, right? There's a lack of unity. Where before Saul was like, okay, let's pray and ask God. Oh, wait, never mind. The cry is getting so loud. Let's just go. And now this time he's like, let's just go. And then the priest is like, no, wait, let's seek out God. And he's like, okay. And then, bam. So then God doesn't answer, right? Because Saul made this stupid curse and it was broken. So Saul asked the council, he said, let's see, Come over here, all you chiefs of the people, and know and see what this sin is today. For as the Lord lives, who saves Israel, though it be with Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. But not a man among them answered him. Do you know why it says that? Because everybody knows what happened. Or at least some people know what happened, but nobody's saying anything. Because nobody's going to freaking throw John under the bus. John has the respect of the people because Jonathan is acting like a leader, not because he's in position, but because that's who he is. So then Saul's like, all right, well, let's figure it out. And it ends up being Jonathan. And Jonathan is taken, and Saul said, tell me what you did. I only tasted a little honey with the end of my rod. So he's like, now I must die. And Saul says, God do so and more also, for you shall surely die. This is all because of the egotistical curse that he made. And the people were like, he's not going to die. He's certainly not, with an exclamation point. As the Lord lives, not one hair of his head shall fall to the ground. There's such this disunity and disconnect between Saul and the people, and Saul and the situation. Saul is fumbling like crazy, while all the people are like behind Jonathan. Again, man, these are all leadership situations. What do we do? How do we handle it, right? And because there's not the preparation, here's Saul in this big situation where you got this massive army coming against you. You got all your people are terrified. What do I do? He sits there and does nothing, and Jonathan goes and takes action. But it's like, and then he makes this curse, and then he's got to deal with it, and then he wants to kill his son, and then nobody's letting him do that. It's just like he has no idea what to do. And this is what happens when you go from 0 and you skip to 100, is you are not prepared to handle the situations, the circumstances that you will find yourself in. When life happens, you will not know what to do. This is why going through step 1 and then 2 and then 3 is so vital, because you want, it's like, it's like, when we talk about businesses, right? And it's like, you want to win or lose on paper first. If I lose on paper, it's not expensive. If I lose in real life because I didn't plan, because I didn't think through the details, it's like that junk's expensive. It's like you want to learn in easier situations so that when you have a bigger situation, you actually know how to handle it. So there's one more situation we're going to look at before we hop off of Saul. And this is in 1 Samuel 15.
Samuel also said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. Now he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." So Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to a city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley. Then Saul said to the Kenites, "Go, depart, get down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt." So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites, and Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. He also took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwilling to utterly destroy them. but everything despised and worthless that they utterly destroyed.
All right, so what Samuel says to the Lord? Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy. Utterly. What's the definition of utterly? It's not the thing that's under a cow.
Completely.
Yes, but fully,
entirely.
right? Yeah. Destroy all that they have and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child. Now, this is the Old Testament right here. Ox and sheep, camel and donkey. It says, but they were unwilling to utterly destroy them. So they kept the best of the sheep, oxen, fatlings, and lambs, all that was good. But everything that was despised and worthless, that they utterly destroyed. Don't even worry about it. So this was a mission. This was a mission to get back at Amalek for what they did to Israel some time ago. So God sends them on a mission, right? Because Saul's still king. So he's still got duties and responsibilities. So God gives him a mission. And dude totally botches it. All right, Carolyn, go ahead. Start at verse 10.
Now the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I greatly regret that I have set up Saul as king, for he has turned back from following me, and has not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried out to the Lord all night. So when Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Saul, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul went to Carmel, and indeed he set up a monument for himself, and he has gone on around, passed by, and gone down to Gilgal. Then Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, Blessed are you of the Lord. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. But Samuel said, What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? And Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Then Samuel said to Saul, Be quiet, and I will tell you what the Lord said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak on. So Samuel said, When you were little in your own eyes, you were not head of the tribes of Israel. And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, But I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and brought back Agag, king of Amalekite. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God in Gilgal. Now he's saying it's the people. So Samuel said, Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. Then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. Now therefore, please pardon my sin and return with me, that I may worship the Lord. But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel. And as Samuel turned around to go away, Saul seized the edge of his robe, and it tore. So Samuel said to him, The Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours who is better than you. And also the strength of Israel will not lie nor relent. For he is not a man that he should relent. Then he said, I have sinned, yet honor me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, that I may worship the Lord your God. So Samuel turned back after Saul, and Saul worshipped the Lord. Then Samuel said, Bring Agag, king of the Amalekites, here to me. So Agag came to him cautiously, and Agag said, Surely the bitterness of death is past. But Samuel said, As your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women. And Samuel hacked Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his house at Gibeah of Saul. And Samuel went no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, Samuel mourned for Saul, and the Lord regretted that he had made Saul king over Israel.
Dang. It's definitely gotten worse.
It's falling apart.
When God says he regretted right? Before it was like, hey, he would have established your rulership forever, but now he's not. But this is a whole nother level. God says, I regret making Saul king over Israel. And this was a guy where God changed his heart because he was not the right person, because he was not qualified. He was a guy who got put in position without the qualifications. All right, so so what happens? So Samuel,
he tries to defend himself because he only partly listened to the mission. He's like,
Well,
I did what was right.
first Samuel can't even find him. Samuel goes to find him and he's gone. And he went to make a monument for himself. Dude was given a mission and didn't even follow the parameters. And he goes and he makes a monument for himself. He is more interested in his image than he is in anything else because he's not a leader. Somebody who is in a position but not qualified needs everybody else to tell them that they're a leader. You need all these outside recognitions because your identity's broken. And we see this in the real world. We see this with people in organizations where there are people in positions who have no freaking business being there. They jumped the fence. They skipped some steps, and their identity is not solid. Their foundation is broken. And anytime you have that, you have nothing but these stupid problems that don't even have to exist. So he sets up a monument for himself. Samuel can't even find him. Finally finds him. And then Samuel said to Saul, so, bro, blessed are you of the Lord, right? This great victory. We've done so wonderful. I have performed the commandment of the Lord. It's just an interesting statement to be like, I followed the plan, even though he didn't follow the plan. I've had conversations like this before. I've been Samuel, not Saul. I performed the commandments of the Lord, but what is this bleating of sheep in my ears? All right, so then what happens? So they brought from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen and to sacrifice to the Lord, right? There's another sacrifice like conundrum, right? Saul's like, oh, I wanted to inquire of the Lord, so I sacrificed to him myself because you weren't here. Oh, no, don't worry. We didn't utterly kill everything because we were going to sacrifice to the Lord. We know what's best. Samuel's like, shut up. He's like, let me tell you what God said to me last night. So he said, when you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel, and did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, go. This is the mission. It is very simple. Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. All right, that's one sentence. That's the mission. It's not complicated. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight? But Saul says, but I obeyed the voice of the Lord. Like, how deluded do you have to be to like just straight up lie like that? Oh, but I obeyed the voice of the Lord and gone on the mission which the Lord sent me, man. You know how I like to sit underneath them trees? I had to get up and go do this thing. And we brought back Agag, the king of Amalek. And I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took the plunder, sheep and oxen, and the best things that should have been utterly destroyed to sacrifice to the Lord at Gilgal. So what's the problem? Saul can't lead. Rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. So finally, right? Saul's like, I don't know. He either just stopped lines, or it's like finally, like, the charade is up. I can't keep this up anymore. I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandments of the Lord and his word, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice. That's not leadership. That's not understanding the mission. But again, like, these are situations that you have in real life. And it's like, it's better to learn how to handle these things when the stakes aren't that high. So that when the stakes are high, you know exactly what to do, right? You've been trained. So, but then here's where it gets funny. Saul's like, bro, but come back with me. And he's like, no. And then Saul says, but I have sinned, yet honor me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me that I may worship the Lord your God. He got sent on a mission, didn't follow the mission, meets Samuel, tells Samuel he did everything. Samuel says, no, you didn't. He said, yes, I did. And then Samuel's like, you're an idiot. And he's like, okay, finally, yes, I did sin. But then he's like, but yet, honor me now before the elders of my people and before Israel. This guy is so consumed with his image that he could care less about reality. Like, this is insane. And so Samuel ends up going back with him, but then never goes to see him again. In fact, the only way Saul does see Samuel again is he freaking conjures him up. He goes to some conjurer and they bring him back from the dead. And Samuel's like, what the heck? That was right before he died.
Yeah, it just seems like Saul was just really concerned with his status and position. That's dangerous. That's really dangerous when you're in a position of leading a lot of people. But I like the part too where it's like Samuel said that God doesn't have as great a delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord. So Saul was trying to play that piece off as where he was trying to play that the fact that they took all those things off as they were going to give those back to God, but it's like he was pretty clever at masking what he knew was wrong.
Right. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
To look the part when you're not the part.
Yeah.
Like you have to do a lot of thinking. Right? You got to be quick on your feet. You got to be able to lie your way out of reality.
And he was like never part of all these things. Like I think he was confused all the time or half the time because he was like never he was never with the men that were fighting. He was never with Jonathan doing these things. He didn't get the vibe from the men when they were really hungry and needed food.
Right.
He was just always disconnected. And so then he was just basing all his decisions on himself.
Right. This is what a king does. This is how a king thinks. Let me go set up a monument for myself. Look at all the great things we did. It's the wrong perspective. But it's like when your self-concept is broken and you live an identity crisis, you have an unhealthy need for outside recognition. And it costs a lot to try to masquerade around as something that you're not. It costs you a lot of stuff. But it's like when somebody goes so out of their way to tell a story that isn't based on reality, I don't know, man. It's like, it's painful. It sucks. That's pity. I pity the city whose king was a slave. Somebody who didn't grow up in royalty, who doesn't know how to act, who doesn't know how to conduct himself, like you're saying, like was disconnected from the people. So then he made an oath that negatively impacted everybody. And then almost put his son in danger, but then almost like put all the people against Saul. It's just weird, man. When your identity's not right, you have no business being in front of a bunch of people, because that identity's got to be sound. Because in all these cases, his identity wasn't sound, and therefore he made so many wrong decisions because he's not basing it off of values, standards, what God did in the past. He goes and, okay, we totally botched up this mission, but let's go set up a monument because look at all these great things we did. Nobody has to know that it was all bad. Oh, I know I did all these bad things, but come and honor me before the people. Why? Because it's about the image. It's painful. It's painful when a slave becomes a king. When people are in position who have no business being there, it's painful for the people. We pretend that reality doesn't exist, and you live in this false concept, in this false world. It's stupid. It's pointless. I pity the city. There's this book, and they were, this was just interesting. They're talking about leadership, and they were talking about if a leader has good skills and good values, a leader raises up their people. If a leader has poor skills but good values, leaders can't actually help their people. Now, if a leader's got good skills but poor values, leaders manipulate their people. And when you have poor skills and poor values, leaders drag down their people. I think Saul falls under that last one. No skills and no values.
Well, if God's saying he regrets that he made Saul king over Israel, I would say you would
saying something.
fall into that category. It's not where you want to be.
Well, it's not. He's not even making bad decisions out of but like competent. He's like incompetent and making the dumbest decisions. But this is what it looks like, man. And it's possible. You see it here. It is possible to go from 0 to 100, skipping all the steps in between. But I pity the city. And I'm telling you, we see this. We have seen this in organizations. We see this where people are in positions and they're further along than they should be. And that's because sometimes people got good skills. They got good talk. And people then give money to it. And then it causes them to advance, except that they're not actually skilled enough. They don't understand enough. They're not developed enough to actually manage what they've been given. And they end up hopping some steps. And I'm telling you, I pity the city. So this is one of the types of leaders that stands out in the Old Testament, right? Somebody who's been put in position but doesn't belong, isn't qualified. So next time we'll take a look at who's somebody who's proficient in some areas and yet deficient in others. And then we'll look at the leaders that were prepared for their call, that they knew what their call was, but there was a journey before the fulfillment of it, and that was the preparation process. And that those people fared much better because of all the experience they gained in the process. They were equipped for their call instead of just getting put in a position with no having no business being there. So guys, thanks so much for kicking it with us. Until next time, peace.